In Nevada, some believe that it isn't fair that landlords charge an application fee to prospective tenants, especially during a hot housing market. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the state of Nevada, specifically the Las Vegas metro area, and it's talking about the application fees that a lot of landlords charge to tenants when they are trying to lease their properties. Okay, so I know that I specifically don't charge an application fee. However, what I do is that I require the tenant to pay for their own background investigation and credit check. So really, that's the main thing that I'm concerned with the cost, but a lot of landlords do charge an application fee for tenants to apply, and what that does is it weeds out a lot of the people who are just kind of, seeing what's out there, to keep them from applying and get the really serious people in there as tenants who are applying for a rental. So what I usually do is, if I was to charge an application fee, I'd probably do the same thing that I do right now with the background investigation. If you are approved to rent my unit, then what I'll do is I will subtract the cost of the background investigation and the credit check from the cost of your first month's rent. So if I was to charge an application fee, I'd probably do the same thing. So let's say you have an application fee of $50, for example, right? Then the first month, of $1,000 rent, you would only have to pay $950 because you paid that application fee. That's just the way I do things. But a lot of other landlords, they do things a little bit differently. So, but my main point is though that the application fee, it is a necessary part of the application process because it takes time to screen through all of the different tenants who have applied for an apartment. Okay, so you got to do credit checks, you got to do background investigation, and that's mainly what the cost of an application fee is trying to cover. Okay, not to mention you're going to be calling previous landlords, calling employers. It takes hours of your time, it takes money, and there is a cost associated with it. So I personally believe that application fees are a good thing for landlords. Now, the people in this article, they're arguing that it isn't fair that these tenants are paying these application fees because the rental market's pretty tight right now in a lot of places, and specifically in Las Vegas. So what's happening is tenants are applying for a property, they're not getting in, and then they have to go to another place and they have to apply for another, and they might have to apply at 3, 4, 5 different places, and they have to pay an application fee at each different place. And they're saying, well, it's not fair that the tenants are out hundreds of dollars in application fees. Well, listen, that's just part of the game. It's unfortunate, but it is a necessary fact, okay? And landlords are not going to just eat that loss, okay? But before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you charge an application fee for your rentals? Or do you charge for the background and credit check? Or do you just, waive all of that? Heck, some of you might not even take applications. You might just, do word of mouth. I don't know. But, I just want to see what the different landlords, what their opinions are of this application fee. I put a poll just yesterday on the issue. So you might want to look back through my community post and you might be able to see that poll and you'll be able to vote on it there as well. So this article comes from fox5vegas.com and it says, renters pay hundreds in application fees to compete for limited Southern Nevada housing. And let's get into this article and see what it says. The rental shortage across Southern Nevada is hitting people's pocketbooks in new ways. People often pay hundreds of dollars or more to apply for available units with no guarantee they will even move in. Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada said tenants have complained of spending $1,000 or more just in application fees before they even move into a property. The high cost of searching for a rental is due to steep competition and a key loophole in Nevada law. There is no limit on how many applicants a landlord can accept for an available unit. Some landlords are taking multiple applications, pocketing the cash, and not processing refunds for all of them. And this is a complete joke, okay? So they're like, oh, they're just pocketing this cash. Like landlords are out here pocketing this great sum of money. Like I said before, okay, the majority of the money that we're getting in, it is used to actually either pay our staff to go through all this screening or to pay for the cost of background and credit checks. But believe me, we're not making any profit off of these application fees. At least I'm not. And no landlord I've talked to has ever said, oh yeah, like this is some kind of lucrative thing. We're making thousands of dollars on application fees. No, that's a joke, okay? No landlord is doing this to be, spiteful or to be greedy and take a whole bunch of money. No, the application fee is a necessary cost. And this legal aid center, they have no clue because obviously they're not landlords and they've never run a landlord business. So they don't know anything about what we actually go through. Some viewers of Fox 5 said applications range from $75 to $200, and after multiple rejections, the costs add up. I spent in total about $900. A lot of these companies are very greedy, said renter Lisa Marie Rodriguez, who eventually found a place after around 6 applications. She said one property admitted they had a renter after she paid a fee. Well, you know what? Sometimes that happens, okay? But here's the thing. If I have to do a background check on every single person who applies, then I need to charge every single person who applies the cost of that background check. I can't just charge the very first person. Okay, well, let me just charge this very first person who applied, just them. No. I mean, when I'm going through the tenant selection process, I will spend time, look through every single one of the tenants and try to determine who is the best fit and who meets all of my qualifications. And honestly, you can't possibly know that until you do all of your, work. So when you're going through the screening process, you're up here, the very first thing that weeds out a ton of tenants is the background investigation and the credit check. And that is the part of the cost right there in the application fee. Now, if you're talking about an apartment building or somewhere where there's actual staff on hand, well, you have to pay that staff. And that is what the application fee is doing, because the staff doesn't work for free. Goodness. But, people, they are ridiculous because they assume that everything is super duper, easy and cheap, and it's just not. Okay, landlords there's a lot of costs that we have to deal with. When on my properties that have property management, the first month's rent, my property manager actually gets half of it. Okay, they get half of the first month's rent just for the cost of leasing up the unit. So yeah, I'm going to be charging an application fee. And by the way, I still have to pay for background investigations and credit checks and everything else too on top of that. So it's not like, this is a profitable game for me, okay? Leasing out a unit is expensive. It costs me money. It costs landlords money. I called them out on it. If you already had a renter, why did you take my application? They stopped answering my calls and emails, Rodriguez said. Landlords can charge any amount they wish. There is no accountability in Nevada, said Aaron McDonald of LACSN. The organization lobbied for a bill to limit applications to one prospective tenant at a time with some sort of refund upon rejection. The bill did not make it through the legislature, and I'm glad it didn't, because that's a complete joke. So we can only look at one tenant at a time. Okay, we're going into like first in line laws like they got up in Seattle, where you have to accept the very first tenant that applies that meets your qualifications. No, that's ridiculous. Okay, the landlord has a right to choose the best tenant possible for their property, in my opinion. Okay, now maybe in these more tenant-friendly places that kind of thing should pass, but thank goodness that it didn't pass in Nevada and it's not passed here in Omaha. Okay, because I wouldn't even want to be a landlord if I was forced to take tenants that I didn't want. So yeah, I mean, if this landlord did this lady wrong, then maybe they shouldn't have done that. But one, there's no way that we should have to refund application costs, especially if we still had to spend money screening these tenants, okay? And two, we should not have to only deal with one tenant at a time. That's completely ridiculous. So let's continue. LACSN plans to lobby for more protections in the future. The Nevada State Apartment Association backs the practice and potential law for a one applicant at a time process, but has hesitation over refunds for fees. There was a lot of work on the back end, says Susie Vasquez of NSAA, who said background checks of tenants and verification against fraud can be time consuming. The organization, in partnership with National Apartment Association, advocates for all its partner properties to review one potential tenant at a time. She advises websites such as apartments.com have properties that abide by that practice. Hey, that might be great for this large landlord group, but what about us small landlords? Okay, I have a single family house. I get 10 applications at a time. I'm screening all 10 of them. Sorry, that's too bad for the tenants. If you're not interested in my place, then guess what? Move along. There's other places to rent. You don't have to pay the application fee if you don't want to. Okay, if you want an opportunity to live in my property, then you're going to pay whatever fees that I'm charging. That's the way it works, okay? It's not fair, but that's what I have to do, okay? That's what I have to do to make it work. Now, I don't agree with the Nevada State Apartment Association. I think that they're wrong on that point, and I think that we should be allowed to screen more than one tenant at a time. So, yeah, interesting stuff coming out in Nevada there. Obviously, the legal aid or whatever, they're pro-tenant, anti-landlord. They're trying to get anti-landlords laws passed. They're trying to make things harder and harder for landlords, especially small landlords, okay? And I do believe that application fees are necessary.